Hi, and welcome to my syllabus. I thought that it'd be easier to go through the syllabus in a video. That way you can watch it when you have time, instead of taking up the precious time that we have in our live sessions for class. So without further ado, I will go through the main sections of the syllabus. You should read through the whole thing. I'm not going to read it to you. There are a couple of sections that I think are important to go through carefully. But in general, I'm going to kind of summarize and talk about certain sections of the syllabus, but you're responsible for reading the whole thing. So please make sure that you do that. The class information is here at the top. This might not be your section. I'm not going to make a separate video for each section of the same course, but everything else should be the same between the syllabuses. Course description is important to look at so that you know what you're dealing with for this course. This course is very different from the 1301 and 1302 courses that you took last year. That was probably writing heavy course. This is a reading heavy course. You'll be reading several pieces a week and discussing them and writing about them. The course of study is one or more literary genres, including but not limited to poetry, fiction, drama, and film. Students will study works of prose, poetry, drama, and fiction in relation to literary periods, terms, and criticism. Text will be selected from a diverse group of authors and traditions. And then just a note about how you need to have made at least a C in 1301 and 1302 to take this course. So mainly we're focusing on reading and then writing about what we are reading. It's mainly imaginative literature. We're not going to be reading speeches, we're not going to be reading essays, we'll be reading imaginative literature. Here's my contact information. I do prefer that you use the WISD email address. I get that on my phone. I get alerts to that, so it's a little bit easier for me to respond more quickly when you use that one, although I do check my STC email a couple of times a day. You will probably get a faster response from me from my WISD. This phone number here is a Google Voice number. I use Google Voice for my students. It's separate from my own personal texting and calling phone number, but it does register on my phone in Google Voice. So feel free to send me a text message there. If you want to right now, you can take out your phone and you can send me a message and say, hey, this is so-and-so, and then I'll put you in as a contact. I just find that sometimes when students are, have a quick question, maybe they don't want to get on, the Zoom call, and it's just easier to ask a quick question over text, so you can reach me that way. If you send me a text sort of late into the evening, I'll probably not respond until the next day. Online office hours, so every day from 2:45 to 4 in our new virtual learning schedule is office hours. So I will be on a continual Zoom call, and if you have a question, you can drop in kind of like you would after school, right? Just to ask a question or to get some help on something that you're working on. There'll be a live Zoom every day from 2:45 until 4. I'll admit one student per person to those office hours. So if you have to wait in the waiting area a little bit longer than you would for a class period, it's just because I'm finishing up with another student, and I'll let you in as soon as I'm finished with that student so they could have some privacy talking about their classwork. After that comes learning outcomes and required core objectives. These are just the goals of the course, the things that you should be able to do when you're done with the class. So everything that we work on, everything we read, everything we write goes back to these outcomes. You should read through them. I don't think that we're going to be doing anything that's totally wild and crazy that you haven't had in English class. The material might be more challenging and the pace might be more challenging, but we're going to be reading and writing. And you've done that in many classes before. We'll also be looking at the historical time periods. We'll be looking at literary criticism and other more advanced aspects of literature. And so this outlines that. Another part that I want to go through fairly carefully is the course requirements, just so that you're aware. There is a minimum course requirement of 2 papers and a final exam for this course. So technically, for STC, you only really need to have 3 grades, or I only need to give 3 grades. Most of my students don't like that. Most of my students would like to have more opportunities than that. So I will usually have about 10 grades for the term. This course does not need to follow the district guidelines for a certain number of grades per 6 weeks. This is a semester-long term course. So what that means is that sometimes you will have grades that are, 6 weeks, you might only be 2 grades in the grade book for that 6 weeks because that's where we are in the syllabus for that time period. But back to the papers. Of the 2 papers, one will focus on a primary source where you only look at the literary text. That's where you'll be analyzing a text yourself. That will be at least 4 pages typed. And then the second paper is a research paper designed to address social, historical, psychological, or philosophical elements of a text, and that one needs to be at least 6 pages long. We use MLA in this class, and I'll go over that for you when it's time to do a paper, but I'm sure you've done papers in MLA before. And the final exam should count for at least 15%. In this course, it is 25% of your semester grade. So that's basically the requirements of the course. Next comes the textbook. If you have not received a textbook at this point, you should probably try to do that. If you're having trouble getting a textbook, we have plenty of textbooks for this course. It's not a new textbook. So if you're having trouble coordinating with the textbook manager or the office or whatever, you should let me know. Maybe I can facilitate that, but I have a cuckoo clock. But you should have a textbook this week. Just in case people are still settling in with that, I'll provide all of the readings with PDFs probably this week and next week. But then after that, you should have your book and you should be able to use your book for your readings. Almost all of our readings come from the textbook. I'll be using Blackboard for all of our coursework and grades. I do use Classroom for announcements and things like that, but for the most part, all of your assignments and things like that will be on Blackboard. I'll probably also put all the assignments on Google Classroom for this week and maybe next week, just in case there are people who are still trying to work out their access to Blackboard. All right, the next section is instructor expectations. So this is the part that I get to put in. Please make sure that your assignments come in with the standard heading. I've listed it here. Online protocols, you saw them when we signed on to our first class period. You need to mute your microphone. Your video needs to be on. I think that down the line I may ease up on that, but at first I need to learn who everybody is. I need to see your face. I need to start recognizing you and that sort of thing. I know that it's not fun to have your video camera on all the time, so I think I will probably relax it later on. But do have your video on for class until further notice. And make sure that your name appears properly. If you're borrowing a device from your sibling or your parents, make sure that when you sign in, it's your name at the bottom so that I can check to see who was present live in the session. You can put a background if you want, an alternate background. I think those are kind of fun. I want you to make sure that it's school appropriate. Sometimes I'll choose a theme for the background depending on what we're reading. So I think that can be a fun thing to do. It's also fine to unmute your mic. I'm not really going to be coming on our live sessions and lecturing. Instead, it'll be more of a discussion based, or I'll be walking you through like a tutorial of some sort or an assignment, like a little group assignment or something like that to practice for what you'll be doing on your own that week. But if you have questions or you want to add something to the discussion, it's fine to unmute your mic and ask a question. We just have to remember to be patient with one another. It's a little different than live, and it requires that we take a little bit more time in transitioning from one speaker to another speaker. And so I just ask that you try to remain patient with your classmates and with me as we start to incorporate this new way of having class. Electronic devices, I would like for you just to remember basically that what's happening live in front of you is always more important than whatever you might have in your phone that you can look at later. So if we're having a face-to-face or a virtual class meeting, your attention should be on the screen where class is going on. You can certainly use your electronic device if you need to take out your phone and put in a reminder or check a calendar date or look something up. All that is perfectly fine to do. I think multitasking is great. But if you're scrolling, if you're, playing a game, all of that is just a signal that of immaturity. And it's better to wait until you're not face to face in a situation where, you know, there's a conversation going on. Absences are important to talk about. I did differentiate between the online environment and the face-to-face environment because we're supposed to go to face-to-face at the end of September, September 27th. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. We're going to have to play that by ear. And even if we do, there'll be some people who elect to still have an online class. You can still do that. So I wanted to differentiate between the online environment for absences and the face-to-face environment. You will be doing an attendance slip every day. I need to have a physical proof that you were present with me and the material in class every day that class is supposed to meet. So for us, that is Tuesday live and Thursday asynchronous. So you'll have to do an attendance slip on both of those days. Next week, we alternate on Friday. So next week, you'll have to do an attendance slip on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. So the attendance slip is something, it goes with the material that we're doing that day. It's usually a quick answer, but I need to have something physical from you to show that you were present in class. We're going to have to probably verify the student's attendance for budgetary reasons, for financial reasons, for the district, so I want to have a physical element. It's not going to be taking attendance on the Zoom. So although you need to be present, it's the slip that you do that day that counts. If for some reason you can't make it to the live, I am going to be recording them and you can watch it later. But you still need to do the formative slip. I'm going to use a website called Formative for those slips. And you do need to do that by midnight to be counted present on that day. So make sure that you pay attention to that. And I'll remind you, it will be in the assignment list. If you're absent, it's important that you make sure that you're prepared for the next class period. So you have to go on to Blackboard and figure out what happened, maybe watch the video of the class period that you missed, and ask any questions that you need to ask, and be prepared and back up to speed by the time we have our next synchronous class. After 4 absences, you'll be dropped from the course, STC and East. You need to be present pretty much all the time. On the 5th absence, I usually remind people on the 3rd absence, and then on the 5th absence, it's a drop. So it doesn't matter where we are in the semester, you need to be present. That's part of the expectation of a college level course. I have had to drop people for absences. I don't like doing it, but it's not fair to the other students who are there present. If you have a circumstance, if you have, an extreme situation, please make me aware of it. If you have a situation and that's the reason that you're absent all the time or you're accumulating absences more than you usually would, please keep me in the loop because there are exceptions for extreme cases. So I don't want you to think that, we're being heartless around here, but you do need to be present for the class meetings unless there's, some emergency or something like that. In that case, you should be communicating with me. In the face-to-face environment, it's pretty much the same thing with attendance. Same thing with the 4 absences. If you are absent from face-to-face class, you still have to make sure that you catch up with whatever was missed during that time. And absence is not an excuse for missing a deadline. If there's a paper due on a day, we turn almost everything in electronically. So whether you're in class or not, I'm still expecting you to meet your deadlines. If something's done in class in the face-to-face environment, like a quiz or a test, you have 1 week to make that up and make arrangements with me to do that. Okay, so continuing on with grading. This course will follow the letter grade breakdown for WISD for the WISD grades. The letter breakdown for STC is a little bit different because they have a D, but I'll be following each institution's grading breakdown. Late assignments, I will take them, but they will be 10 points off per day that they are late. If they are not turned in on time, it'll be 10 points for every calendar day, not class day, that they are late. There is a bonus. I know this is a shock to you, but there is a bonus that you get for taking this course on your GPA at East for ranking purposes. Just for ranking purposes. You should know The grade that you earn is the grade that shows up on your transcript. So don't delude yourself into thinking that you get an added points and it's going to show up on your transcript in that way. The only way it shows up in your transcript is with your rank. It's expected that you'll be checking your grades fairly frequently on the portal. I do keep up with both grade books, so make sure that if you notice a discrepancy or you notice a problem, you should bring that to my attention. I'm not really sure how long it's going to take me to grade things given this new environment, but I can tell you that I'm pretty good about getting things back in a reasonable amount of time. I'm not a quick turnaround person, but I'm also not going to be hanging on to your things for a long time before grading them. Writing in this course is going to necessitate your ability to be precise. I do take off points for grammar on everything that you turn in. At this point in your education, you're taking a course that is equivalent to a sophomore level course in college, so you should be using Grammarly on your assignments, you should be double checking, you should be capitalizing, you should be using your commas, and all those things. If there's something that is a problem for you, I'm glad to help you with that. We can do that in the office hours or set up a time where I can show you what grammar issues you might need to address. But you do need to be attentive to grammar rules. There'll be points off for every error in your work. The next bullet here is important because it talks about how the grades might not be the same, even though most of the assignments are the same between the East grade and the STC grade. The reason for that is because the two courses weight the grades differently, and also there are a few assignments that we do for the East grade book that we do not put into the STC grade book. One is rough drafts. Rough drafts are not graded for STC, but I may take a grade for them in the East class. Also college admissions essay. STC doesn't want me to include that in with the grading system because their thought process is that you're already in college, but I will help you with your college admissions essays. So there are a few things that happen in the East assignments that don't happen at the STC. So the grade might not be equivalent is the point. Also, I think it's important to remember that the course is set up like a semester. So there will be maybe 10 grades for the semester. And so wherever we are in the 6 weeks, that's what the grade is. I don't give a certain number of grades per 6 weeks. Some 6 weeks, there's only 2 grades because we've been working on a paper. So the point is that if I have to give a grade for progress reports or if I have to give a grade for report cards, whatever the grade is in the East grade book at that point in time will be the grade that will show up in that situation. So that's another reason probably to keep an eye on them and check out your grades every once in a while. Okay, here's the breakdown. I do use the 60-40 for the East grade. I think that's fair. 60% for your minor work and 40% for your major work. STC breakdown is different. It's 35% for quizzes and assignments, 40% for final drafts of academic papers. There'll be at least 2 because it's a requirement for this course, and then 25% for the semester exam. I will tell you that students sometimes ask me about extra credit. I very rarely give extra credit. I don't expect that I'll be doing it in this virtual situation either. But you can revise an essay that you've written for class. I think we can learn a lot through the revision process. So if you have an essay and the score, wasn't what you wanted it to be, or if you need some more points to get a grade that you would like to have for the term, then within a week of a paper being returned to you, you can come and talk to me. We'll have a writing conference and discuss what the strengths and weaknesses were in that paper and some directions that you think you might go with it. And then a week after that, you can submit a new draft of the paper and I will grade it all the way up to a 100. So there's an opportunity for growth there on those papers, but you have to initiate it. The last thing in this section is a statement on academic integrity. There is another section from the department a little bit later on in the syllabus, but this is the part that I put in. This first part is a quote from the student handbook all about academic integrity. I'm not going to go into a lot about that because I have a quiz that you'll be taking the first week of class to demonstrate that you understand about academic integrity and academic dishonesty. But just know that if there's a situation where you do not do your own work for whatever reason, or if you do someone else's work and it's discovered, you will be punished. I tend to either give zeros on that assignment or there's dismissal from class. So I have had to do that in the past, unfortunately, but I think we have safeguards and usually those things get caught. So please make sure that you're doing your own work. After that comes the topic outline. This is just a week-by-week sort of little summary of what we'll be focusing on and what we'll be doing each of the weeks. This isn't everything in detail. This is just an overview. So usually I will post the week's module on Sunday or Monday before we have class on Tuesday, so you can kind of look at it, maybe get a start on it as we get into the term. It'd be easier for you to do that. Or you could wait until Tuesday and hear me talk about the assignments and things for that week. But this is an overview in case you wanted to look ahead. I'm not going to go through it because I know that you know how to read, but there are usually 2 or 3 things to read each week. Also, there's usually some textbook material that you need to read and take notes on, and some sort of activity, journal entry. There's a wiki that we're going to start later on, etc. There may be a video that you have to watch, that kind of thing. So this overviews all of the weeks leading up into our last week, which I think is pretty much the same week as it is in WISD. So that's there for you. Last but not least are all the institutional policies, the things that the department and the college want you to be informed about. The first one is notice of non-discrimination. Title IX statement is the same thing. That has to do with not being discriminated on the basis of sex or gender. So nobody's going to discriminate against you, and if you feel you've been discriminated against, then it talks about, and there's several links here of what you can do, what recourse you have. Pregnant and parenting students, there's a statement there. ADA is about disabilities. If you have a disability, the college will work with you, so you should contact the number that's there. Veterans, if you are a military veteran or the child of a military veteran, then there might be some benefits for you, so that's listed. Developmental studies, this is not a developmental course, so that doesn't really apply. They just put it on every syllabus. Institutional continuity, that's about in case there's an emergency. They even put the word pandemic in there, or hurricane. They talk about how the way that the course works might shift. We all know that firsthand. There's a student handbook that you need to be familiar with. The link of it is here. I don't know that you need to read through the whole thing. It's almost 200 pages long. The quiz that you'll take on academic integrity in the first week of class does ask you to read a couple of pages from that handbook, but it's a good reference on how you should do things, how you should, contact people, and, just different rules and regulations of the college. Then there's a COVID-19 statement, meaning that because we're in a current pandemic, decisions are being made as we go through time. So they're just kind of like, explaining that. And then there is an English department plagiarism statement, which is pretty much the same thing as you will discover in your academic integrity quiz and in the statement that I put in my materials above. Chain of command just means that if there is a conflict between a student and instructor, your first step is to talk to the instructor about the situation. So I try to be open, I try to be approachable. So if there's something that's going on, I did something that was worrisome to you, then you should come and contact me first about that. We should have a conversation. If that's not satisfactory to you, you can go up the chain and speak to the department chair, which is Mr. Joseph Haskey. I think his office is in the Pecan campus in McAllen, but there's his phone number and his email right there. I don't anticipate that's going to happen, but you do have that right as a student if a matter isn't resolved to your satisfaction to go ahead and speak to the department chair. So that is the end of the syllabus. I would like to thank you for coming to my syllabus talk. I know that it's a lot of boring stuff, but I do think that it's good to get a feel for what your course is going to be like, what your instructor expects of you, and so I'm hoping that this video did that for you. And so I will sign off, and I will see you on the next synchronous day.